of the pack ultra guy. I'm always very excited, but I'm incredibly excited for this one because I've been following Andrea for some time. And on top of that, Andrea has been so kind to put up with my back and forth scheduling for quite some time. Original scheduling, I totally missed it, fell through on my end, and she was kind enough to reschedule. And then through work, I found out I was traveling that week. Anyway, long story short, I am so incredibly grateful for her kindness and jumping on, because I think this episode and her story has to be shared. But without further ado, Andrea, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about where you grew up and how you found sport and your way into ultra.
Oh, sure. Well, first, I'm real excited to be here. You know, ultra runners, we love talking about ultra running. And so I'm just thrilled to get the invite from you, Christian, and just glad to be here. So I've always had an athletic background. I'm the oldest of six girls. Mom was a single mom, and I think her idea of keeping us out of trouble was putting us in sports. So most of the time growing up, I played soccer, and then into high school, soccer and volleyball. So just always involved in sports. And it's kind of odd that I actually hated running in high school. I was on the long distance team and the cross country team, and I wasn't really a fan, but I needed to run a sub 10-minute mile to make the varsity volleyball team. And so that's how the track coach found out about me. And I was tall, I have long legs, and it kind of went from there. But I never really liked running growing up. And then, marriages come along, kids come along. But as the kids got older, I really wanted to return to my athletic roots. And so somewhere in there, I started taking the dog for walks. And when I was on the Katy Trail in Dallas, I would see people running, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should try that. And things just kind of progressed. And then I started running the fall of 2016, and then our first marathon was 2017. And you know how slippery the slopes are. So it kind of just very quickly went that direction. And I went from road running, primarily marathoning. Let's see, the BMW Dallas Marathon was my first marathon. And
Right
that
on.
was actually when I started on Instagram. And somebody said, you're only like 12 minutes shy of a Boston qualifier. I didn't know what that was, but I was intrigued. And so shortly thereafter, we ran our next marathon, qualified for Boston. That's about when I met Jackie. And she said, come out to LA. Let's run Mountains to Beach. I want to qualify for Boston, and let's run Boston together. We did end up running Boston Marathon in 2019 together. And that was
Wow.
actually our first date, was a marathon in 2018.
Wow, that's cool.
Oh, it's a very interesting story, she and I. But then, fast forward, and COVID came along, and that changed a lot of things for everybody, right? And that was really kind of a transition into trail running. And I was late to the party. A lot of my friends in Texas, I was in Dallas at the time. They were all running these 100-milers. And as a marathoner, I could not even picture 4 marathons. Like, that's insane. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, so COVID is really kind of what took me off the road and into the woods. And man, our first trail race was Rocky Raccoon. And
Wow.
that was
Okay.
that was 2021, I think. And I got tricked into the 100K, and it's all been a snowball effect after that.
Well, you were dead on when you said that it's a slippery slope because, YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, the algorithm picks up that, oh, you're interested in running. Well, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you ever considered sleeping in the desert overnight, during a multi-day event? And it just queues you
Exactly.
up all this stuff, and you're like, oh, I
Oh
didn't know
yeah.
you could do that, or I didn't know people did that.
Oh yeah.
But it's interesting, and I'd like to just dip into this a teeny bit. I've had so many guests, and obviously people I've met just through the community, and they'll say something similar, but it's the same flavor of, I hated running. It's just it's so fascinating to me. But I think it's interesting because, as we all know, ultra running, you do run. There is definitely running involved, but it's such a different mindset than the road. And obviously you were kind of, quote, born in the road with the road marathons and your first date, which that sounds like a crazy story, by the way, which would be awesome to hear about. But you kind of, at least when I did marathon, Ironman, I was always like, how are they running? Like I'm thinking like a Kipchoge pace running 100-miler. In my mind, I could never wrap my mind around, how is this possible? And so I think there's like this perfect balance of people that hate running and they find ultra. They're like, wait, you get to eat during these? You hang out with friends on the trail as you're oh, this is kind of up my alley. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that's amazing. And Rocky Raccoon, that's one I've always kind of I've been curious about. So, and this is like, it sounds like you're running starting in 2016, COVID hits, you find your way to the trails. When you find your way to the trails, what was some of the differences that you encountered between road running and trail running? I always like to ask this question because everyone has a different experience coming from road to the trails.
It's I will never forget my very first trail run with my friend Brandy and John. We went out to Cedar Ridge and we were going to run 13 miles. So as a road runner, my half marathon was like an hour 40. And so I was like,
Nice.
13 miles, that sounds, yeah, let's totally do that. And it was October 2020. Like I remember like it was yesterday. I show up in my road shoes and, a little cute tank top and, my Nike Pro bike short, and I remember the first couple of miles, it was like, ooh, there's dirt and grass and rocks. And it was very uncomfortable, because on the road, you could just totally zone out. You don't have to really look where you're going, right? You don't have to really be engaged. You find that flow and you just go. And at the end of that 13 miles, I was like, that just took us 3.5 hours, and I was completely trashed. I was wrecked. And I was like, I don't understand why I feel so torn up. And it's like, well, you're not just running, you're jumping and you're bobbing and weaving and all these other muscles that it takes to run trail. And I grew a mad respect for trail running because in my mind, it's like, oh, it's road running, but on dirt. Like, how hard can it be? And it's absolutely not the case at all. There's just so many other components to trail running. And I fell in love with the challenge of trail running, that it was not just something that you could zone out and you could just fly. This was a be right here, right now, engaged 100%. And it was just very, very challenging. All the moving parts within your screen, right within your frame. You have to watch out for this branch, this rock, this root, there was just so many things. And I was very fascinated by just how difficult trail running was compared to road, in my mind.
Yeah. That's interesting because when you think of running, you just think, oh, you're just running. And everyone's kind of ran in some way, obviously, on the soccer field, a football field, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I've taken more road runners out for their first 1 or 2 trail runs, and it's like, well, where are we going? And you kind of point like, well, we're going to go up there and come back down around this other trail. And I go, oh, okay, cool. But that's kind of what you hear from them in the aftermath is like, I am really sore in like my ankles are sore. And you're like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've noticed,
Yeah.
at least, I don't know about you, but the races where for whatever reason, I've trained more on the road for like an ultra. Maybe I was pressed for time. And so the majority of my runs were on the road around my house or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the trail and you're like, I am out of trail shape. But trail shape, in my mind, is a real thing.
Yeah.
You really have to train on the trails or you don't earn that. All those little muscles and all the ligaments get used to the, like you said, bobbing, weaving, dancing around. Oh my gosh, a rattlesnake! I got to stop and go. Whatever it is,
Right.
It's just so different. But it really is beautiful because you're so engaged. I like how you said that. The screen in front of you. It's not like you're, wandering up. You're off in La La Land. I guess maybe some trails you could be, but for the most part, you really can't. You got to be so focused.
Right.
So I like that. That's awesome. So you obviously did Rocky Raccoon and stalked you on Ultra Sign Up. So I know you didn't stop there. So tell us where that progression went to, right? Rocky Raccoon, COVID's happening, things are changing for everybody. Right. You're in the woods now. What did the races look like from there?
Rocky Raccoon, I just remember my feet hurting. And I was talking to my pacer, Jen. I'm like, is this normal? Like, I thought something was wrong. We need to shut it down. I'm just going to quit. Like, this is not normal. My feet should not feel like this. And of course, she was a 100-mile runner. She's like, oh no, this is part of it. Yeah, your feet are going to feel like that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And just everything hurt. But crossing that finish line was like, I just did that. Like, I just ran 62 miles through the woods. That was crazy. I feel absolutely trashed, but amazing at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think it was that finish line feeling that I was like, wow. I felt this sense of like, you are a badass. And you are invincible and you can do anything. And I am so proud of you. And I love that feeling. And the whole community, I mean, we're talking about road running versus trail running, not even ultra trail, just trail running. I was meeting people like we were struggling together. We were hurting together on the trail. In a marathon, nobody's hurting. Everybody's just flying, having a good time, and certainly no one's talking to each other, right? I mean, you're just on your left. I'm trying to make my marks. I've got my, times here on I'm trying to get this. And it was such a different vibe. So I think it was the feeling of the finish line, that sense of, wow, I just did something that I didn't think that I could do. And I did it. And then this whole community that just became family. These people, if you know, but you can't go through some of these things with people on the trail and not be like bonded for life. These were just incredible relationships that just go with you forever. So those things combined together, that finish line feeling, the community, was like, I need to do this again. One, to make sure that wasn't an accident that I finished 100K. Like, I need to make sure that I can actually do this. And I want to meet more of this community. And I want to have more of these experiences out on the trails. And from there, I was like, man, what's one more loop, 2 more loops? Let's just sign up for a 100-miler and kind of see what happens, And then we got into our first 100 at Indiana Trail 100 later that fall. And
now,
it was incredible.
I by no means am the know-it-all ultra person, and I hear about all these races I've never heard of, which that does not mean anything. Full disclosure, but I've never heard of the Indiana 100. Tell me about that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, the Indiana Trail 100, also known as IT 100, it's a fantastic first time 100-mile race. It is around Chain of Lake State Park there in Indy. The Indy Trail community is amazing. It's a really nice loop course. I believe it's in October every year. So you have the leaves. It's beautiful flashes of gold and red. And their aid stations are just amazing. Nick Brandt is the race director there, and just really an incredible community, a beautiful course, and nothing too crazy. I think total vert on that is maybe 6,000 to 8,000. So you're gonna feel it,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but certainly kind of a nice. It's just a beautiful course around the lake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always funny when I'll say something like, it's a good entry 100-miler, and everybody, people kind of laugh, and you go, no, really, you don't want to do like Ouray for your first 100. You may want to do like the Cold Water 100, the IT 100, some of these other ones that you're going to get your 100-miler, but you're also going to learn, oh, I need to do a little bit more elevation, or I need to dial in this other area of my game.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me. So that sounds awesome. Yeah. I'd love to hear more from the Indiana Trail community. I admittedly am in such a bubble where I've just in my ultra life have grown up with around Aravaipa, and just not that there's anything wrong with that, but you obviously meet a ton of people here and in Flagstaff and all these other smaller cities around the Phoenix area. But as I interview people, there is so much out there. I mean, I've heard more about races in Texas. Yeah. I had a guest on. He was telling me about, I think it was the Habanero 100. It's around a lake, and there's alligators in the lake. And you have to go around.
Yeah, Brazos Bend. Brazos Bend 100 is the alligators.
And you go around alligators. I was like, what is going on here? Are you serious? And that's normal? Anyway.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating to me how much is going on in the ultra space all over the world, specifically the United States, but there's just so much. It's not just Colorado. It's not just Arizona. There's races all over the place, and it's just fascinating to me. So that's interesting. Where did you go? Like, where did you go next? Again, you're not the type of person that's like, well, I'm going back to a road marathon now that I found this community and got my 100-miler belt buckle.
Right. Well, at the same time that I was training for my first 100-miler, I had friends that were training for this super crazy race. It was called Cocodona 250. And so at the time, like, I'm just trying to get my first 100-miler. Greg and friends were training for this race in 2000, I guess 22 or 21, and I could not wrap my head around that. So, but while I'm starting to get into 100-milers, I started researching what is this 200 stuff, and I was immediately drawn to like Moab. I've never been to Moab, Utah. And you're seeing these pictures online. And again, it goes back to your like social media really opens the gateway, and you start following these accounts, the Tommy Rivs and the Catcher Corbett's, and people that are, Candace and people that are just doing these incredible things. It's like, okay, I did a marathon. So basically Cocodona would be 10 marathons. You folks are crazy. Who wants to go do that? And so that was kind of just my first, okay, I'm going to try out this 100-miler thing. But in the back of my mind, I was always intrigued with how far can you go? And there are people running 200 miles, 240 miles, 250 miles. So I've just been intrigued, but I knew that I first needed to, how do I run 100 miles, but the ultimate dream was eventually to try to run something crazy like Cocodona.
Right on. And obviously you have. So one thing I do find interesting is because I was the same way. The same kind of trajectory. It's like, oh, now I get Cocodona. You first, you do a couple hundreds, and you're like, oh, Cocodona is the next, or a 200 is the next step. But I'd love to get your opinion on this. It's so interesting to me because they really are two completely different types of races. Completely different. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to explain to people who haven't done one or actually kind of been around it to see it, like a crew or a pacer that have a really good idea. Mm-hmm. But I jokingly said once, somebody was like, oh, would you do Mogollon Monster again? And I said, I would do Cocodona tomorrow before I did Mogollon again.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, Cocodona, I know I can get that done. I got the time, the aid station, I'm eating the hamburgers, I'm talking with my buddies, all the people are there.
Yeah.
Mogollon, you're chasing cutoffs, and it's just up and down and up and down. So I'd love to get your opinion on that. There's it's almost like the trajectory into 200s is more of like a ultra fast packing, like multi-day event would translate more into that than someone who's like an incredibly fast 100-mile runner. It seems like they really are that different, but I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, I think just to back up a little bit, running is hard. If it's a 5K, if it's a 10K, choose your hard, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a 5K scares the hell out of me. There is no room for error. It is a red line for 20, 30 minutes. That's scary. But when you go to run a 50K or a marathon, if you've only run 5Ks, you might think, oh my God, a marathon? I have to run this many 5Ks to get to a marathon. But we don't run marathons the way that we run a 5K, yep. So I think some people that are just trying to start their first 100-miler, they're very fast marathoners. And in their mind, they're like, oh my gosh, how do I run a 3:30 marathon 4 times? Well, we don't run 100-milers the way that we run a marathon. So that same thing kind of rings true for a 200. I think sometimes in our mind, we're thinking, gosh, 100 miles just wrecked me. I have to do that 2 times. And it's like, well, but your 100-miler that you might have ran in 24 hours or you might have ran it in 30 hours, you are not going to run that 100 miles in a 200-miler. It's what you said. It's totally different. So we have to be more curious and less fearful to kind of just go and explore what that might look like. But I would take a 200 over 100 any day of the week.
Yeah,
much easier in my opinion.
I've signed up for the Bradshaw Brute and I did a little ultra download.
Oh,
Andrea, honestly, I'm still worried about it. That's a tough.
Yeah.
That's a tough go. I mean, we've both done the first part of Cocodona. It's tough. And then, no crew, no pacers, the cutoffs. It's like, I kind of got into that 200-mile mindset, and it's like, no, you got to kick back into that. No, it's, go time. Like you said, there's less room for error in a distance like that with the cutoffs like that. So I completely understand. It's definitely something that, it's so weird to think about it. It's not just ultra training is not just a blanket thing. There's such a specific way of training for these races that I'd be the first to tell you I'm not an expert in it. That's why I hired a coach. But, there's definitely so much difference in each one of these distances. And I would agree with you 100%. Running an incredibly fast 5K is so much more scary to me than doing Cocodona. And that sounds so weird to people, but you're like, that all-out effort for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, that's incredible what people are doing. What these
Yeah.
guys and gals go out and do and these crazy times they put up. I'm like, that's so impressive. My little nephew running, he's up in Oregon. He's in cross country. He's running these insanely fast cross country meets. And I can't even comprehend running that fast. You know, like I've never looked down at my watch and seen it say, oh, you're running a sub 6 minute pace. Like I've never seen that on my watch.
Yeah.
I can't imagine holding something like that for the distance of a race. So I agree with you 100%. Well, I'd love to hear about your experience at Cocodona and then transition into this, or one of your more memorable 200s. And then I'd love to hear about your last one in Florida you just recently did, which, by the way, you look great for just finishing a 200. I'd still be on the couch, like just laying there.
Well, let's see. So our first Cocodona was in 2023. I think that's right.
Same year as me. That's cool.
Oh, super cool. And, before, even when I was running 100 milers, ultras, any type of running, running in the heat is like my least favorite thing. I've had several heat strokes during other sporting events. So most of the time, my running season would start in the fall and it would finish in the spring. By April in Texas, I'm like, okay, I'm done. We wouldn't sign up for any more races. But, it's like the desert and it's going to be very, very hot. Those are things that very, very scary to me. And running Black Canyon's 100K was a great kind of entryway into running in the desert, running in something that's a dry environment. And so after Black Canyon's 100K, I was petrified of Cocodona. But I do believe that doing something scary is a good thing. That means that it's next level. That means regardless of what the result is, it is massive growth. So whether I finished or not, just registering, I felt like I'm winning. I just did something that's very, very scary. And you know what? I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to train for it. I'm going to gain knowledge. I'm going to do everything I can before this event. But just saying, I'm going to do it because I'm on fire to do it. And regardless of skill or talent, I do believe that our passion can drive us so much further than we even know that we're capable of. Like,
I agree.
You can't stop a human on fire to do something. And that's the power of like the human spirit. And I was on fire to finish Cocodona 250. So, just registering, get to the start line. I already felt like I was winning. And then I just was surrounded by this incredible team. You think people are your friends and they care about you. Something happens when they come out to an event like this and they are in the ditches with you. It's 2:00 in the morning and you're crying together and it's like, we got you. And so many people are like, oh, that's incredible that you did this. And it's like, no, I didn't do that. Literally, I felt like people carried me spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and our body will physically do whatever we tell it to do, So we just needed people to believe. It's like people believed in me more than I believed in myself. And that is what got us to the finish line of our first Cocodona. And that was such an incredible experience. When people say Cocodona 250 will change your life, that's not an exaggeration. Something happens and it's such an incredible journey. You can't really put it into words, but I know that at the end of it all, it's something that I want for every single person that I know and I meet. It's like, you can do this, you'll see. And it definitely is something that changed my life. And after Cocodona, I was like on fire for if this average Jane can do that, I want to see like what else can average Jane do. And so we immediately like, okay, what's this Triple Crown thing? What are the other
Mm.
200s? And so we just kind of went hunting for more experiences like Cocodona because it was so incredible.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it really is such a special experience. I know we have a mutual friend in Dakota up there in Flagstaff, and
Yeah.
when I was talking with him, that spirit of Cocodona is not just in the ultra world. I mean, he tells the story of he's working at the hospital and he just sees what's going on and he just starts wandering around the finish line, just starts going around, catching that fire, that spirit of what everything is happening. And so I even said to him, it's so crazy how it just reaches out beyond the space. I don't know about you, but like during the week of Cocodona, I have people who have really no relation in the ultra community, relatives or just friends from my past. Hey, are you watching this Cocodona thing? It just like gets out in the world. It's
Yeah.
really wild. It's
Well, I
definitely
think
contagious.
you can feel something in Cocodona as a runner, as a racer, that you kind of feel in other 200s, but not at this level that Cocodona brings to the table. And I think that when you're out there, you kind of feel like you're living this story. And Jamil Curry, he has done an incredible job of sharing a story about Arizona. It's a story about, all the places that we go through, the Bradshaw Mountains, around Mount Union, out it's Cottonwood, and we go through Whiskey Row, and we go through Jerome, very historical place in Jerome, and he kind of, I feel like you can feel his love for Arizona. And it's like, and I feel like he's like, I want to take you on a journey and I'm going to tell you a story as you like navigate through all these places, all the way up to the San Francisco peaks of Flagstaff. And you're up on top of the Coconino Plateau. And I just feel like it's this beautiful story as you're kind of meandering along up to Flagstaff. And I think it's that love that he shares and that story that he presents that you can see it through all the social media. You can see it, drones flying over Hangover Trail. You can really, and that's probably another element, right? That he has opened this window and he has invited people in to see, like, what does this journey look like? What does this adventure look like? What are the highs and lows that these humans are going through? And people are intrigued by that and they want to open the window and they want to see, like, what's going on out there. And they can really see this love and this story kind of open. And I think people are just drawn to that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And he's not taking away from any other race director or race company at all, but there's some kind of magic they've done with that race that it really is such
Yeah.
a special thing, for lack of a better word, spirit. It's a special vibe, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But people really get hooked on it, and it's really incredible stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, with finishing Cocodona, there's such a high, and you obviously have explored the Triple Crown, and I again, not to pick favorites, but
Yeah.
as you've done all these different multi-day events,
Right.
which one stands out to you as kind of your favorite, or one that, and it'd be hard to pick, but I'd be interested to hear that.
That's
Sorry to
each.
put you on the
I,
spot.
no. I get asked this quite a bit
Oh, okay.
throughout the journey this year. Is like, well, compare this one to this one. What did you think? Was this one easier? Or how did this one fill your cup more than this one? And um, they're all really incredible because they all bring some sort of challenge. Like Moab 240, it has stuff that Tahoe doesn't have. But then Tahoe 200 has things, that Bigfoot doesn't have, and it has things that Moab doesn't have. But then Bigfoot has things that so they all have like their special things. When I talk about the spirit of Cocodona, I really felt that spirit at Mammoth 200. I think you can feel Tim's love for Mammoth Mountain. You can feel his love for those trails in the Sierras. You can, it really had that vibe to me. It was his like pouring out of like, welcome into my home. I want to show you the beauty that I have fallen in love with. Like I kind of felt that vibe from Tim at Mammoth 200, and they have such an incredible crew. The aid stations were genuinely full of love. Like, what can I prepare for you? It wasn't, here's a bag of potato chips and some orange slices. Like, you really had Billy Yeg, like over there cooking, making rice balls, and people at Sawmill were slicing up avocados. And I mean, it was a spectacular, and that was an inaugural year for them. And it was absolutely beautiful course, very beautifully, passionately presented. And you could feel that not just on the course, but the way they did the race briefing before, all the communication before the race. It was just, it was very, very special at Mammoth 200. Some of my favorites, I would say, outside of the U.S., Divide 200, hands down. Hands down, such an incredible experience. They do some things at Divide 200 that you're not going to see anywhere here in the U.S. They have a dinner before the race, so everyone's together. They have Shep does an incredible race preview, so you can really see turn by turn what it's going to look like, and he describes it so eloquently, and he is so excited. He's like a 5-year-old in a candy shop. It's a very incredible experience. And after the race, they have another family dinner, and their award ceremony is not just for who finished the fastest, but they have spirit awards, and they have all sorts of other things. And so it really feels like a very intimate, so kind of opposite of Cocodona, where Cocodona is very flashy and very exciting, lots of hype, lots of social media. Divide is more a family get together of a lot of rogue hoodlums in Canada that are going to go, they're going to go do some really incredible, I mean, the climbs up La Culotte Ridge, you can't describe how difficult and challenging that terrain is. You just have to go experience it. But the greater the struggle and the fight, the greater the victory. So that finish line, just so hard to beat. And I would say here in the U.S., Summit 200, man, what Chase and Casey Hammond have done in Colorado, it is spectacular. The climbs are gnarly. The views are beautiful. And right there at the finish line, you've got somebody with a grill going, and they're making hamburgers. IPAs are passed around. It's just, it's a really cool, small feeling. And so those are some of my favorites that just, you have to do it. You have to experience.
I saw the Divide on my social media feed, some time ago. I can't remember when. And I've put that one on my back burner list. And so I'm really excited to hear you describe it, because something about that one kind of hooked me. And I was like, ooh, I think I want to do that. Kind of that same initial feeling when I was getting into ultra, like, ooh, I want to try that one. Ooh, I want to try that one. That one really kind of hooked me. So I'm excited to hear that from you. That sounds fun.
It is definitely it is a black diamond course. So let me tell you, it is tough. It is gnarly. It is sketchy. But it is some of the most beautiful terrain I've It's the Southern Rockies of Canada. It's there in Alberta, Crow's Nest. You're going to go through Banff. It's just an incredible, but very, very challenging and also very rewarding. It's spectacular.
All right, you sold me, Andrea. You sold me on it.
I'll come pace and crew. It really is it's a special course. It's a special course for sure.
That's awesome. Well, it's so impressive to hear, and I hate saying your resume, but it's really a good way to describe it. I mean, it's just so impressive what you've done. We haven't even talked about Florida yet. So it's just so impressive to hear all this. It's so motivating. I wish I could kind of bottle your energy up and take it with me on the trail, because it's, you're such you have such an amazing way about you and the way you're describing these things. Your passion for the sport is just there. Your passion for the community's there. So it's awesome. But would you mind telling us a little bit about Florida? Because when I think of 200s, that's the last place I think of a 200 miler is, in Florida. So I'd love to hear about it.
Oh man. Well, starting back in April after Monster 300 and then finishing Cocodona, it was like the Monster Donut thing was happening. And then Tahoe was quickly after that. Like all these things were happening. And I started thinking like, how many 200s can we run this year? And I started thinking about this bigger project, right? And so I started looking for 200s on Ultra Sign Up. And I had a window in November. I didn't have any races going on, and I found a Cross Florida 200. And it was so intriguing to me it would be the only 200 I've ever, where you go across the state, So to start on the West Coast and go completely across Florida and finish on the East Coast with the Atlantic it was just very interesting to me. Yeah. I was very nervous registering for this race because it has 4,000 feet of gain. So not like the mountain 200s that I'm kind of used to that have 40, 45,000, 30,000. This has 4. So that told me it's flat and fast. So I was very scared. I was very intimidated by this race because mountain 200s, there's more hiking, there's more climbing with little sprinkles of running, so you're changing up your muscle groups all the time. So flat and fast for 200 miles, I was like, I don't know if I can run that much, so it was very intimidating, but also very exciting that we would be crossing the entire state of Florida. And saw some other friends that were registered for it. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be epic. And it was super cool. We got to the start line. Of course, David Goggins was there. And a lot of people wanting to meet him and get pictures with him. And that was a lot of fun. Jeff, the race director, gave a really in-depth briefing. He let us know this is a minimally marked course. These are some things to watch out for. And I don't know, we started to the song Thunderstruck. That was super cool and fun. Yeah. And so it was a really fun start line. Before the start, they give you a vial. And this vial, you go and you get sand right there at Withlacoochee Bay, I think is what it's called. So you're getting sand from the West Coast, and then you carry that all the way to St. Augustine Beach, where you will collect sand from the East Coast. And so now you have this vial that has sand from one side of the state to the other side of the state. So that I thought was really cool, and it was like a fun keepsake. On top of the massive buckle that we got. It was really crazy. But yeah, Florida, You're on the Florida Trail for a lot of the race. This race does have a lot of road. So either a paved road, a highway, a bridge, a road that goes over a massive bridge because there's lots of rivers and waterways. There were a lot of places we were running on. It felt like a dock or a pier, like they were wooden bridges that kind of went over Everglades and waterways. That was really kind of fun and a little bit eerie at night.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, it was kind of eerie. But it was very challenging because there was a lot of running.
What
But
were the
it was,
cutoffs like
yeah.
in comparison to the other races?
I so initially I think the cutoff time is like 96 hours for this race. And because there is a lot more running involved and less climbing, you're not in the mountains. A lot of people, it was a PR for most of the people in our group. It was a PR for myself. You do, even if there's a lot of power hiking involved, which is still very hard. Power hiking for 3 or 4 days is still very hard. But it does tend to be a fast course. So, as long as you're constantly moving, we felt that the cutoff times were very generous. I think 96 hours was the cutoff time. We're kind of like mid to back of the pack, and we finished in like 78 hours. Yeah. We're party
Impressive. That's
pacers,
awesome.
we're making TikToks and posting to Instagram, eating all the snacks, so we're, my friends and I, we're firm believers in more fun than run. That's all it takes to get it done, honestly. So,
Yeah, that's more my speed. But I'm not out there to crush anything except for my goal
no.
to finish. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's have a little fun. Let's take
Oh,
the seriousness down a notch and just enjoy ourselves
yeah.
and relish in the experience. But that sounds so amazing. And like I said, when I think of Florida, you don't think of like a 200-mile event. And side note, I've seen all those weird like anaconda videos where they're like in the Everglades. So to me, that's so much more spooky than like running through the mountains somewhere, just because I've spent so much time in the mountains compared to like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to go run through the swamps of Louisiana. I'd be like, I don't know, alligators.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Man-eating mosquitoes or whatever else is out there that you don't know about. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And the vial with the sand, that is a really cool touch.
Yeah. It was super cool. And, I think at like mile 10, we actually had to get in a canoe, and there were volunteers that were canoeing us over a river. And so that was kind of fun. That was the first 200 I've ever experienced where you had to canoe across a river to continue on your way. So that was super fun. And I like, even like in Cocodona, going through towns, I find very fascinating. Like, so you're out in the wilderness, and then you kind of come back to society, and then you go back to the wilderness. So I love that about Florida, that we were going through Hastings, Potlaca. We were going through, and I hope I pronounced that right, but we were going through like these small towns, and like neighborhoods at 2 o'clock in the morning, listening to Trick Daddy. And I'm like, we probably need to keep it down because like people are sleeping. It's a random Thursday, at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I like that kind of, you're in the wilderness and then you kind of go through towns and then you're back out into the wilderness. That made it super fun, and just kind of made it interesting. You weren't on trail the whole time. There was trail, there was road, there was sand, there were greenways where it was just grass, and then of course Florida with the humidity, it was so green. It was so green. And I'll kind of compare it to the first time I ran an Aravaipa race in Arizona. I've never seen these cactus. They are massive. They're huge, when you see them in person. And so in Florida, these palms, I mean, there were so many different types of palms and fans and palm trees. And I mean, they were huge. And just everything was so green. It was beautiful. It was super cool. There was a lot of places they had the Spanish moss like hanging, from palms, and it was super beautiful. Yeah.
Man, they need to hire you as like a marketing director. The way you're describing it, I'm like, I want to go. This sounds amazing.
Well,
It's so awesome.
I before we moved to Flagstaff, I lived in downtown Dallas for 10 years, and I think maybe just being in the city, like once you get out and you just see all of these incredible places of Mother Nature doing what Mother Nature does, it just feels really, really special. And I think, that's probably the biggest reason that we run all of these 200s is it really feels like a vacation. It feels like we're going to go meet some really rad, incredible human beings, and we're going to see some really cool Mother Nature stuff.
Yeah, that's
It
so true. So true.
Yeah, it never feels like a race. It never feels like a 200 miler. It just feels like a reunion with our friends. And what do we get to go see? Like, what mountaintop are we going to see? What mesa are we going to stand on? What, animals are we going to get to share space with?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess like when you see it that way, it's kind of different. It's cool. It's fun.
No, I agree with you. It something humans, we're never designed to like be in a building, in a city. It's like these big cities with really no nature around us. You get out there in some of these remote areas. You mentioned the Monster. I was pacing a buddy of mine at the Monster, and some of those sections of the Arizona Trail are so remote. You're so far out there, away from
Yeah.
anything, and spiritually you really connect with nature. You really realize you're like, wow, this is where we came from. Like this is
Hmm.
this where we started, and it's just beautiful. I just feel
Yeah. Yeah.
so at one and at peace when I'm outside
Yes.
in nature.
Oh, yeah.
And you know I don't know. I was when I
Yeah.
was traveling. The reason we had to reschedule this, I was traveling and I went and sat outside to eat breakfast at the hotel, and one of my coworkers came outside. They're like, "This is a great idea." I was like, "I've got to be outside. I know I'm going to be inside for hours. I've got to be outside today. I can't
Yep.
just sit in a."
Yep.
I just don't think we were designed to sit, and so I think that's
Hmm.
partly what you're talking about. This idea that when you get out there, you really reconnect with who we are as humans, and Mother Nature is so amazing, and you just
Yeah.
feel a part of the ecosystem. And I never feel that way when I'm, in the house or outside,
Right.
in
Right.
a big city. So I think that's a big component of the reason why I like doing it, and it sounds like a big reason why you like doing these things is just really reconnecting. But
Well, I feel like that's really what we were made to do. We were made to be outside on our feet. I mean, grounding people. It's almost like when we were kids, we play outside with our shoes off and we run around and that's all great. But something happens between, okay, graduate high school, go to college, get a career, build a career, only have a career. If you don't have it, like we're chasing this career so we can raise money, have money to raise our kids. Like we're just going through all these steps that we kind of lose. And it's almost like we have to go back to being kids, where we just play and we don't have this fear. We have more curiosity and we need to be hugging trees. Our toes need to be in the sand. We need to be, rummaging through the leaves and in the grass. Like that's what we're made to do. And I'll tell you, 30 years of private banking, I sat behind a desk chasing a dollar, thinking that things would just be great, you know? And I think something pivoted, you know, when I left JP Morgan, that it was just like, I want to be outside. I don't want to chase a dollar. I want to chase an experience. I want to chase being outside. I want to chase feeling things, energy from the trees. I want to chase having a moment with this rabbit or a moment with this mountain goat. Like, there's an exchange of energy happening out there that it almost like makes me cry. Like, that is a spiritual, you want to talk about going to church? Woo! 200 miles of church. We got you, you know? It's, I mean,
call it
that's
dirt church.
yes. And that's, I feel like it's such a spiritual awakening when you're out there, and it's just like, this is where I want to be. I would rather be nowhere else but right here. Bigfoot 200 on top of Pompeii Peak at 3 o'clock in the morning. Are you serious? I mean, it's like, it's really, and I know it's kind of cliche when people say we get to do this. It is a privilege to climb a mountain. It is a privilege to have health, to be able to do this. It is a privilege to have a community that is cheering for you and loving you and pushing you forward. Like, it really is a gift to get to go and do this. And I just wish everybody would do it.
Yeah. You know, I agree with you, and I just thought of a story that I'd share. I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast before, but before Cocodona, I was doing an overnight training session at a trail system by me in the Mesa area. And there was, talking about connecting with nature, there was this little bird that had this very distinct marking on its back. I say he, it could have been a she, I don't know, the bird. It landed, it kept landing and following me around this 50K I did at this trail system. And there's no one out there, obviously. It was like a random Wednesday night, so into Thursday, so it was just me. And for that whole night, it followed me around. And at first I thought, no, this is a different bird. So then the next time I made a really mental note, because it would sit there and look at me on a rock. Like, I'd be coming up this mountain and I'd turn a corner and it would be sitting right there on this rock. And I was like, that is the same bird. And I was so connected with where I was. It was so beautiful. And I don't think I shared it with my dad, because he's kind of a hippie too. So, and he might believe me. But I was so connected with nature and just being outside. You become a part of the ecosystem. And I think that's, like you said, that's where we were intended to be, was outside, and, you know, with all the other mammals and animals all around. So I love your description, and I'm serious. You're like an amazing ball of energy that I just wish everybody could get out there. And so I really hope that, you know, this reaches a lot of people, because you have such a beautiful outlook on life and such a beautiful outlook on the sport. And I agree with you. That's one of the things that I was so impressed by Dakota was, I've always been like, hey, I wish other people would do this. And you take someone like Dakota, who's like, gets hooked on Cocodona, and he's just going for it. And it's like, yes, people can. Yeah. This is not some, you know, there's not a walled city. Like, this is the most open community. Yes. You know, you can do it. And it's like, I wish other people realized, you know, maybe not, I'm going to get up tomorrow and do the Arizona Monster 300, but you could do it. Like, I had the privilege of interviewing the lady who took last place at the Arizona Monster, and Carolyn Garriott. She's 62. She was out there for like 7 days. Mm. How amazing is that? Yeah. And just the story she tells about crossing the finish line, like she's FaceTiming her daughters and they're all crying. Aww. It's just the most beautiful experience. All these stories, and that's why I love doing this, is stories like yours, of this constant pushing the envelope, constantly pushing yourself, connecting with nature, connecting with the community. There's just so many beautiful stories out there just
Right.
like yours, and I love hearing them. It's such a selfish. This whole
Oh,
podcast is so selfish because I just get so excited talking with people and sharing these stories.
yeah.
So thank you for doing this, and I always try and give my guests the last word or last, if you want to shout out to people, or if you want to, you have like a mantra you want to share with people, whatever it is. I try and give my guests the last word. So I'll turn it over to you to close us out.
All right. Well, I think for a long time I watched other people do incredible things, and I always just felt like that's for them. That's not for me. And something happened where I was like, well, what if? I mean, don't you? I mean, maybe, maybe I'll just see, But for a long time, I watched other people do incredible things, and then I said, well, maybe I can, and I just started doing it. I just started saying yes. Just say yes and figure it out as you go. You don't have to have the answer. You don't have to have the plan. Just say yes and give yourself the chance to surprise yourself, because we're so worried if we fail. But what if we fly? What if it's incredible? What if it's amazing? Like, don't you want to know? And there's nothing special about people that run 200 milers. There's nothing special about people that run 100 miles every week. There's nothing special about any of these people. We're just people. And anybody, if you really want to, nothing is stopping you except for you. And so I just invite people to be curious, give yourself space and grace, and the opportunity to surprise yourself, because you're really capable of a lot more than you think that you are.
Man, that's beautiful. I definitely won't say anything post that. That's beautiful. Perfect recap, Andrea. I'm so grateful that you
Oh,
rescheduled
thank you.
after all of the mess that I created. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome to get to know you a little bit more, to hear your story, to feel of your energy, and just it's just contagious. It's beautiful. So thank you for that. Keep it up. Maybe on another episode we'll hear about your first marathon date that turned into a relationship, because that to me is a story of it of itself. That sounds so
Oh,
awesome.
so
Um,
fun.
but thank you again, and
Thanks
yeah,
for having me.
you're
Thanks for having
awesome.
me.
I really appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. See ya.